Silicon Valley, technology, art, green, and sustainability.
Welcome to another episode of Silicon Valley Tech, Art, Green, and Sustainability. Today I'm honored to have with me Barbara Keegan, who is a longtime businesswoman in the Valley, and I'm just honored to have you here, and works with the Santa Clara Valley Water District. Thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure. I love coming out and having the opportunity to get our message out to the community, so thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So before we get started, tell us a little bit about yourself. You have a really interesting background.
Oh, well, thank you. I am a civil engineer. I'm actually a third-generation civil engineer, and I grew up in a number of different countries. I was born in Canada, I lived in Ireland, I lived in Brazil, and I lived here in California. So it's been an interesting background. I spent over 25 years as a professional engineer, and I retired a few years ago and decided I wanted to try and continue to give back to the community. So I am a volunteer on various boards like San Jose Arena Authority and others, but I decided to run for elected office, and I was fortunate enough to win. So I have a position, I'm a director at Santa Clara Valley Water District, and I represent this area, downtown San Jose, Willow Glen, Rose Garden, and the southern part of the city of Santa Clara.
I think I voted for you, yeah.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much.
And did I read that you were the first woman who worked for the San Jose as an engineer?
I was actually the second woman hired in the Public Works Department, and that was back in 1984. So can you imagine? But I was the first woman to be promoted to senior engineer.
I know Rotary didn't start inviting women in until 1986. So
wow.
That's interesting. 84, you got the second position.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And when was the first one hired? Do you remember? A couple years?
You know, I don't know. She was an older woman, and so I think she had actually been hired sometime previously, but after I got hired, then it kind of started a trend, if you will, and more women came into the profession.
And there's lots of women engineers there now.
There's lots of women engineers everywhere. It's a great profession. I highly recommend it.
It's awesome. I'm going to pull up the first and second slide right now, because I know we were supposed to pull those up right away. So tell us about this slide.
Well, this tells a little bit about what the Water District is all about. And we take an integrated approach to water resources. So our mission is to provide Silicon Valley with safe, clean water for a healthy life, environment, and economy. So having a stable supply of water is important for obviously just our physical health, but it's really important for the overall community and for us to be able to attract industry and so forth to come to our area. So we serve 2 million people, 15 cities, 4,700 direct well owners, and 13 local water providers. We're a water wholesaler, not a retailer. So we depend on our partners to actually come and purchase the water from us and deliver it to the customers.
So where do we wholesale from then?
Well, if you look at our water supply, we import most of our water. I think we have a slide here that actually shows that.
Yeah, let's go ahead and pull up the next slide too. So tell us about the water district, and so we've got where the water comes from. There we go.
Right, so a lot of people see the reservoirs. We have 10 reservoirs spread throughout our county.
Okay.
The largest of which is Anderson Reservoir down in South County. And a lot of people think that that's where our water comes from, but the reality is that's only 30% of our water supply is local. So 55% of it is imported, and we get it from 3 main sources. We get it from the Federal Water Project, the State Water Project, and also we get some from Hetch Hetchy. But much of our water actually comes through the Sacramento, San Joaquin Delta. So that's why it's so important for us as an agency to make sure that we actually have a solution to what's going on in the Delta. I think it's premature. I haven't decided yet whether I support the governor's proposal to build twin tunnels to take water around the Delta. I don't think that we have enough cost information at this time to make a determination. But certainly finding a solution to the Delta that's environmentally and economically makes sense is something that's very important.
Let's pull the next slide up too. So this is slide 4. So climate change and water supply.
Climate change is actually a huge deal for us. Right now we're looking at a new normal, if you will. And what does that new normal look like? What we think and what scientists are telling us is that we're likely to see more frequent droughts, and that's going to affect not just our water supply, but overall the water supply in the state of California. For example, the Sierra snowpack, that provides as much as 65% of the water in California. But lately, we haven't had much of a snowpack, and even with our best estimates right now, scientists are telling us that by 2050, we predict a loss of 25% of that snowpack. So that's a really significant kind of issue. So what does that mean for us locally?
Well, and I think last year it was like 50% less than it was the year before, and it's just been dwindling and dwindling. And
it has, yeah. So what does that mean for us locally? Well, it means that we have the ability to import less water. That means we have to pump more of our groundwater out. And when that happens, we run the risk of subsidence.
And we've been doing that a little bit already, right?
Yeah, we have. Yeah. And a good example of what subsidence looks like is the portion of San Jose, Alviso, when you see that much of the town is below sea level. That's been a real problem in the Alviso area. We don't want to create that problem in other parts of the city, because once you have subsidence, it doesn't come back.
So let's pull up the next slide too, and I think we should be on slide 5 now, water usage in California.
This is kind of an interesting slide because this is one for overall for the state of California, and as you can see that 80% of the water in our state actually goes towards agriculture, and so only 20% of it is going towards, 10% goes towards urban areas, and agriculture gets 40%, and then the remainder goes to what we term environmental uses, so it flows in the river.
We can pull that slide down too. What does that mean, environmental uses, then?
Well, that means that water that flows through our streams, that provides riparian habitat for animals and things like that of that nature. There's some people who think that we should capture all the water that falls from the sky, but imagine if everything was a dry creek bed, right? Imagine if you didn't have water flowing through deltas to create appropriate ecosystems.
Well, I know that we have Coyote Creek in our backyard, and it's really low right now
it
near
is.
William Street Park.
Right.
And I remember when I was a kid, my grandfather used to like us to go back and catch crawdads for him. And this is like in the 70s, right? 70s,
right.
I can't even imagine what was probably in that creek, but he lived to 97, and he would get a huge thing of it, and he'd eat the crawdads.
I wouldn't want to eat them now, not with the homeless encampments we have out there.
And all the stuff that's been dumped too, that they dig up later and find, you know, environmental technology stuff.
But I want to talk a little bit about how the earlier slide where we talked about the water breakdown, that was for California as a whole. But in our county, if you look at the water that goes towards urban uses, actually residential use is 55%, and businesses are about 30%, and actually agriculture is only about 8% in our county. We don't have a large agricultural industry.
We're not like we used to be, where we were the
exactly.
The Valley of the Heart's Delight before. It's urban. Yeah.
And I think that there's a big value for the public in having the open space aspects of having some level of agriculture continue in the county.
I'm going to pull up, I think it's slide 6 we're on right now, and let's see, on this one, human half of water use.
Exactly. So this is the one again that talks about for the human uses in the state, it's an 80-20 split. And so this is the split that we see throughout California. And this one's interesting too, I think, because when you look at urban uses, it breaks down roughly 50-50 between interior uses and exterior uses.
That is really interesting.
So people who have those lush green lawns, that's using a lot of water. And that's why we're really interested in providing opportunities for people.
And then the further breakdown there, it says, I'm trying to read it, it says toilet, showers, faucets, washing machines, leaks and leaks are 12%.
Leaks are 12%.
Wow, you put that down.
Exactly.
That is just
that's a big number.
Nuts.
That's a very big number.
Huge.
Yeah.
Of that 50% of the, what was it, 80, 20%, 20 is human use.
Right.
50 goes to our lawns and whatever we have in our yard, and the other 50, but 12% of that other is, wow, that's just,
well, that's
that blows
why,
me away.